Welcome to the GreenLight Investor for the week ending November 6th, 2015. Our goal at the GreenLight Investor is to provide a resource to make managing your 401k both a simple and easy process. We do this by using red, green, and yellow cells in our worksheet to help you decide when to buy, what to buy, and when to sell. This presentation is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as personal investment advice. I'll be using examples, and that's exactly what they are. They're examples of how you can use this worksheet in conjunction with other resources to make choices within your 401k plan. Always refer to your own investment policy to make certain that the choices you're making are both appropriate for your investment time horizon as well as your understanding and acceptance for taking risk in financial markets. Let's go ahead and go right into our worksheet. On the left side, we have the investment choices available to you, and the column headings include the fund number, fund symbol, the fund name, and a brief description of the fund. They're also set up in different categories, starting with the core investments at top. As you move down the worksheet, we'll go into the satellite investments, starting with the money market funds, fixed income funds, U.S. growth and income funds, our U.S. equity funds, international funds, and at the bottom of the list are the sector funds. Sector funds tend to be the more aggressive funds because they're very concentrated in a particular industry. International ones also carry a little bit of risk because of a lot of unknowns and currency risks, things like that. U.S. equity funds give you a broad exposure to U.S. equities. Our growth and income funds are a combination of income as well as U.S. growth companies. Fixed income is primarily getting yields off of different funds, and the money market is considered a safe place to park money. The center section, we update the performance for each of these funds each week. In this column, O will highlight the closing price for the week. Next to that, we'll highlight the month-to-date return. Next to that, we'll have the quarter-to-date return. And finally, we'll have the year-to-date return, down column R. The reason we think this is very important is so you can keep track of your funds anytime you'd like. Once a week, this is updated so you can see how your funds are performing, and you can catch trends early. You don't have to wait for each quarter to come around and see what your statement says. If there's changes to make, it takes you about 5 minutes each week to go through this, and if there's any changes, it's an easy way to do that. Finally, on the right side of this worksheet, we have our current weekly trends. This is what I think is the most unique part of this worksheet. The information is centered around column V, which shows us the relative strength change on a week-over-week basis. When you see the bright red lights, that's generally one of the weaker funds, and when you see the bright green, it'll take your eye right to one of the funds that has been performing the best on a week-over-week basis. To the right, we keep track of red, green, and yellow cells, which will show the relative strength of each fund on a week-over-week basis and keep a cumulative tally going. When you see lots of red, that generally means that the funds have been weak and are not performing well. And when you see lots of green, you'll see that the funds are generally strong and it's a good time to be in the markets. And when you see red and green, it's generally a transition or a choppy sideways market. You'll also see numerical values, so don't let these scare you. What they are is they're actually a very easy way to see a trend developing in each of the funds. When the numerical values are increasing, as you see in this row, these funds are generally doing better than the ones that are showing red and where the numbers are decreasing. When the numbers are decreasing on a week-over-week basis, that generally means that the fund is not performing well. And when you see the numerical values increase, the funds are generally performing fairly well. And also when you scroll down this, you can see when you have a lot of red on the right side, it's generally a good time to be away from these funds or stay away from them. When you see red and a little bit of green transitioning in, that's a good signal that it may be okay to go ahead and go into this fund. It shows that the strength of the fund has transitioned from weak to generally a stronger performance. As you scroll down and you're seeing where there was a mixture of red and green, then it went solid red, and now we are actually seeing more green appear. So you're seeing a lot more strength coming into this area, which is the US equities. And to the left of column V, you're seeing in column U what I think is also one of the most important columns, and that's the long-term trend. Generally, we feel pretty good if we have a long-term trend score that's bullish or green, and we have at least 2 green lights to the right of column V. When we have that, that's our core signal that it's okay to be in these funds, and there's nothing to do except sitting in them. So we look to see these transition, and when you see the 2 green lights as well as 1 green light to the left, it's generally okay to be in any of these funds. You can also do additional research if you want to go into any of these funds by simply clicking on the button, the hyperlink. It'll take you to an outside resource where you can look at the chart over different time frames. And what I think is nice is you can go ahead and take a look at what are some of the top holdings in any of the funds. So when you're doing your research, you can see what funds are being held by the fund, and that may help you make a decision as to how you'd like to invest your funds. All right, let's keep scrolling down this, and we're seeing that there's generally a lot of red to the right, and we are just starting to see a little bit of long-term strength showing up in a couple of these funds. So with 1 green light to the right and 2 to the left, we'll be keeping a close eye on this and possibly allocating capital in the next week or two. And down at the bottom we have our sector funds. And what we've seen is a transition from mixed to red to generally getting stronger. We're also seeing a lot more green lights on the left side. So generally a pretty good time to be looking at reallocating your funds and possibly putting money that's in the money market back to work. Right, with that said, let's go ahead and see how we can use this to make decisions or to help you make decisions within your 401k plan based on relative strength and the green light system. To get there, you click on View, Custom Views, and then where the capital letters are, My Allocation. We'll go to a different view in this worksheet where you can keep track of where your current fund choices are. Please remember that this just shows you what the funds are. To actually change these, you have to go into your 401k plan at work and make the choices. But when you do, if you take just a few moments to keep this worksheet up to date, it makes it much easier to see how your funds are doing, and especially when you may want to make changes to those funds. That's the whole idea of this worksheet. Okay, let's go ahead and scroll down and we'll see how we're doing. First thing I like to do is to scroll the worksheet over so it's column R, the performance numbers, the year to date, are right next to the allocations. The allocation is pretty simple. We have a target allocation, and then we have a current allocation. So at the top, we're going to go ahead and set our funds. We have a 10% allocation set up to be in index funds. And this week, we actually got 2 green lights to the right and 1 to the left. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some capital out of the money market, and we're going to put 10% back into this. We've been waiting to do that for quite some time. So here's our money market. So this is now down to 30% allocation. So let's go ahead and scroll over and see if there's any other adjustments we need to make. As we try to get 100% invested, that's our target, but we want to do so while the market conditions are favorable for making money in them. And that's when we see the green lights. When we go to our fixed income, we're still seeing red lights to the right and left, so again, there's nothing to do there. We have a 5% allocation we'd like to be in our U.S. growth and income. We see 2 green lights. We'd like to see this one change to green, and when we see that, we'll go ahead and allocate our 5% back here. But until then, we're going to go ahead and stay in the money market. Our U.S. Equities, we have a 30% target allocation. We currently have 20% invested in this fund, and we have 10% down in this fund. And what we're seeing is that we have a green light and then 3 green lights to the right, so we're fine, nothing to do there. This situation, we have 1 green light to the left, 2 green lights to the right, so again, there's nothing to do here, and the allocations are fine. We actually have a few other funds, so if you do some research and would prefer another fund or to add capital to this, the 2 green lights to the right and the at least 1 to the left is a good place that you can allocate your capital. Here we have a 30% allocation we would like. Last week we went on a little bit early when we saw 3 green lights. This week we did change over to 1 green light, so that's okay. So we'll leave this here. And like I said, we're being just a little bit aggressive here, getting in, anticipating the green light based on the numerical values getting stronger on a week-over-week basis. And finally, we have a 15% allocation that we'd like to be in the sector funds. We've got a couple of green lights to the right, and we have green lights to the left. And I actually like the financials, so I'm going to go ahead and change my allocation to sector funds to 20% now. And what we're going to do also is move 10% allocation to the U.S. financials. So if we slide this over, we can see that we have the financial service sector. So we'll make that allocation. And what we have to do is remember that we're going to take 10% out of our money market, which is right here. Here's our money market funds. So we're going to go ahead and take 10% out, and that's going to leave us with 20% to invest. So we're now 80% invested in this market. And what you have to remember then is to either get a copy or take a look at this worksheet when you get to work, or have the 401k website in front of you, and you can go ahead and make the allocations within the 401k plan on your work site, make those match the allocations on this worksheet. If you keep those up to date, it makes it real easy to make the choices simply by sliding the slider over and checking to see if you have the green lights to the right and the left of column V. That's what we've got for this week. Pretty easy way to keep track of your 401k. You can do as much research as you like, but this is one additional resource that helps you with the actual decision and the allocations. Let's go ahead and go back to our main worksheet. We'll go back to the with allocation and with performance numbers. We have a number of different setups on this worksheet you can look at if you'd like. So please go ahead and test them out and see what you can find out. Of course, if you have any questions, you can always visit our website at thegreenlightinvestor.org. You can always email me also with any specific questions, and I'd be happy to get back with you and help you understand how you can use this worksheet as a resource to help manage your 401k. Thanks again for taking the time out of your weekend to watch this, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you very much.